everybody, how's it going? Thanks for joining me this afternoon. I am Auron MacIntyre. Before we get started today, just want to remind you that one of the ways we keep the lights on around here is, of course, subscriptions to Blaze TV. So if you'd like what we do around here and you'd like to make sure that we can keep doing it, please head over to blazetv.com/Auron and you can get $20 off your subscription today. It's going to give you access to all your favorite Blaze TV hosts, all that great behind the scenes content, and of course, you'll be supporting this show as well. So head over to blazetv.com/Auron to get your $20 off today. Hey guys, want to talk to you a little bit about Zohran Mamdani today. I'm sure you've heard that name over and over and over again. He is probably going to be the next mayor of New York, and everyone is freaking out on the right over what this means. Does it mean that the young people of the United States have suddenly embraced his kind of version of woke socialism? Does it mean that there's an Islamization of the United States going on? Both those things would be concerning, but I don't think it's the core root of the problem. And trust me, I'm against both of those things very much. But it's very clear that at the end of the day, what we're facing is an immigration crisis. And the general fruits of that immigration crisis are now coming to bear. And because conservatives are terrified about talking about the effects of immigration, they'll talk about how we should close our borders and only legal immigration and that kind of thing. But they won't talk about what happens when you import a large number of people who don't belong to your country, don't have any loyalty to your country, don't believe in the traditions or religions or anything else that are attached to your country. They don't want to talk about that because ultimately America is this, it's just this propositional nation. And anybody who walks in and raises their right hand, they're just going to believe in the American way and they're going to become beautiful Americans. They just step on the magic dirt, and like that, all of their beliefs they had before they walked in the United States, they're gone. And so anyone can become an American from anywhere. And you don't need to think about where people come from or what they believe or what their tradition is or what their tribal structure is, how they actually do their government. And none of that matters, because once they cross the threshold into the United States, they will be beautiful and perfect Americans. So once they're here, the only thing to discuss is how did they fall to this ideological gambit by Mamdani? But that's not what happened at all. This isn't a battle of ideologies. It's not about socialism. And to some extent, it's about Islam. But even beyond that, it's truly about what happens when you import vast number of people from the third world into the United States. And I'm very, very tired of this whole debate ignoring that fact. So we're going to go right at it, straight on, as soon as we hear from today's sponsor. Everyone knows that college is a major investment, so it's really important to do your research. You want to find a school that shares your values, but who has the time to dig through all those college websites? Well, today I've got great news for you. There's a free, easy-to-use resource that does the work for you. It's called ChristianCollegeGuide.com. This online directory of over 250 Christian colleges and universities is a one-stop shop. ChristianCollegeGuide.com lists all the basics such as acceptance rates, tuition costs, and academic majors. But here's what makes this resource truly special. ChristianCollegeGuide.com will show you the school's faith commitments, its campus policies, and its spiritual life. All the info that you will need to find the college you can trust. This is the definitive college guide for Christian higher education, and it's completely free. So if you or someone you know is considering college, go to ChristianCollegeGuide.com to create a free user profile and start today. It's ChristianCollegeGuide.com. All right, so like I said, the answer to this quandary that seems to have just racked the conservative mind recently of how someone like Zohran Mamdani could come to power. How could New York City elect a Muslim mayor? This is the city that experienced 9/11. This is the city that had to push back against Islamic terror. We were told that the real problem after, of course, remember 9/11, was that Muslims would be discriminated against. Like that, obviously the people of New York were just going to hate every Muslim they saw. They were probably going to kill him on the spot. It was going to be this horrible, horrible thing, right? Of course, that didn't happen, and didn't happen for a very specific reason that we'll get into in a second. And not only did it not happen, but now a Muslim is going to probably win the mayorship of the very city that was attacked by Muslim extremists a little over 20 years ago. How does this happen? Well, conservatives made it happen. They went out of their way to make it happen. This is George Bush's fault. This is the Republican Party's fault. Now, don't get me wrong, the Democrats did this too, but of course they're going to do that. The Democrats hate the United States. They hate the people of the United States. They go on and on about how they want to replace the people of the United States. So we should expect Democrats to betray us at every moment. It's bad. I agree it's bad, but I expect that. But we need to talk about conservatives and how they made this bet. And yes, George Bush led this push, but a lot of people on the right, a lot of people who have prominent voices on the right today were alongside doing the same thing. And we didn't end up in this position just out of nowhere. We ended up here because the left and the right worked together to manufacture exactly this outcome. And now it seems like the only reason we really care about the fact that Mamdani is probably going to win this election is because he seems anti-Israel. I'll just say it plain. The only reason that the establishment ultimately seems to care that Mamdani is going to win is he talks sometimes about globalizing the intifada or whatever. But it's very clear that ultimately Mamdani's not really like that devout of a Muslim. Like a lot of progressive Muslims, he's fine making inroads with the trans community and the LGBT community. He'll talk about, the importance of trans people in his community, all these things. So, I mean, how really Muslim is he? Well, enough to say, oh, I'm not American and I hate Americans and I hate Christians, but not enough to like actually impose any of the doctrine. So is Mamdani going to create Sharia law in New York? No, probably not. But the funny thing about liberal Muslims and devout Muslims is both of them hate Israel. And that seems to be ultimately the real problem. Now, I'm sure a lot of people also don't like his socialist policies, but to be clear, it's not about his ideological rhetoric either, right? Mamdani, yes, he's offering lower rents and rent controls and the different grocery prices. He's going to control the state grocery stores, the city grocery stores. Yeah, that's all going to fail. It's all dumb. And a lot of conservatives love running around and saying, oh, look at how stupid this is. Look at how dumb he is for pushing this economic plan that has failed over and over and over again. But that's not what it's about. That's really not what it's about. And it's so clear that ultimately Republicans are missing what it's about. So let's look at this picture right here, the one I've got pulled up of Mamdani. You can see this over and over again, and many of his events look exactly the same way. Mamdani is, of course, at a cultural Islamic center, right? He's surrounded by fellow Muslims who are all there to support, well, him. And why are they there? Are they there because they really, truly love socialism? Is it that, we hear about this now, the Islamo-Marxists. It's the Islamo-Marxists. They used to be Islamofascists. Remember that? Remember, back in the George Bush days? Weird, isn't it, that George Bush was fighting Islamofascism and now they're Islamo-Marxists? Like, whatever, right? It's just a grab bag of words, right? Because Muslims don't have this aggressive attachment to some kind of liberal or kind of modern understanding of ideology, right? Like they don't have this idea of abstracted political and economic systems that they need to adhere to. They're Muslims, and what they care about is what's good for Muslims, and they don't care if that's socialism or capitalism, Marxism or fascism. It's not ideological, and that's the thing, is that the Republicans needed to make it ideological because they can't talk about the real truth. What are these people truly loyal to? Are they loyal to Marxism? Are they loyal to fascism? How can you go from Islamo-Marxism to Islamo-fascism by just flipping this coin? Well, you can't. You can't. That's not what happened. What happened is these people are consistently pro their nation, pro their people, pro their religion, pro their tradition, pro their culture. So whatever works for that, whatever gives them an advantage, they agree with. If you're pushing some kind of socialist doctrine that will benefit them, that's fine. Are you pushing a fascist doctrine that benefits them? That's fine. Are you pushing a liberal capitalist doctrine that benefits them? That's fine. They don't care. They care that it benefits them and theirs. They are tribal in the most classic sense of the word. And so they don't care about your abstract ideology. It's not about the sickle and the hammer. It's not about, each according to his need. It's not about the glorification of the central state. They don't care about any of that stuff. None of that matters to them. And the idea that it does is just an incredible need to project our own modern liberal understanding of the world on the people who in no way interact with it. And it's important for a very simple reason. Conservatives don't want to acknowledge the fact that the vast majority of people around the world to this day continue to be heavily ethnically loyal, religiously loyal, nationally loyal. They care about their people, their tribe, their nation, their religion. That's what they care about. They don't need to abstract it into some complex, philosophical understanding. They just care about them and theirs. And because that's what they're going to do that whether they're in the United States or not, whether they've crossed onto the magic dirt or not, whether they've raised their hand and said the pledge or not. They don't care. None of that matters to them. These ideological commitments, this understanding that we all have to share these abstract values, they don't matter to them. It's all just cover for introducing themselves into the system so that they can take over the system. The people in this photo with Mamdani, they don't care about what he believes as an ideology. They don't care about his philosophy. They're not tracing his ideas back to Karl Marx or Gentile or any of these, mid-century philosophy. They don't care. What they care about is Mamdani is going to take from the people in the United States and give to them. That's all they care about. It's not ideological. It's not about Marxism. They care that you have stuff and you're not Muslim. You're not from Somalia. You're not from Pakistan. And they want to take your stuff and give it to people from Somalia and Pakistan. That's it. That's all that matters. They don't care if you explain that with Marx. They don't care if you explain that with, Stalin. They don't care if you explain that with Hitler. They don't care if you explain that with Mussolini. They don't care if you explain that with, the Adam Smith. They don't care how it gets done. They just care that it gets done. You are a corpse they can loot. You are a slave they can work. You are a cow they can milk. That's it. That's all you are to these people. And because Americans have been trained to never think in this way, they have no antibodies against this type of thought. So they have to turn it all into an ideological abstraction. No. It's not that these people are just only caring about their own race and religion. It's that they're Marxists. Because if we oppose them on the basis of, well, actually, they only care about their race and religion, then we'd have to acknowledge that means we have to care about our people first. Like, it's not about just the ideology. It's that these guys are an opposing group that want to fleece America, and we have to care about Americans first. And Americans aren't just anybody who walks into America. It's not just anybody with a social security number. It's not just anybody who at some point went through the naturalization process. Paperwork Americans are not Americans. The end. But that terrifies our leadership. That terrifies conservatives because we have been trained to never, ever think this way. And because we've been trained to never think this way, we refuse to face the obvious facts and we refuse to take the obvious steps. And so today, I'm here to demystify this process, to stop playing games, to stop calling for half measures, and simply say what needs to be done. Because if you look at the stats of who is electing Zohran Mamdani, if you are a foreign-born New Yorker, you are far more likely to vote for Mamdani than if you are born in New York. Native New Yorkers are far less likely to support Mamdani than foreigners who have immigrated to New York. So this is not an election about ideas or principles or ideologies. This is a roll call. Are you the class that built New York? Are you the people who contribute to New York? Are you the people who define New York? Or are you the people who are here to loot New York? Are you the people who are here to take? Are you the people who are here to ravage it and then move on to the next thing? Because you don't care. You don't care about New York and you don't care about the United States. And that is the coalition that binds together for Mamdani. And often they will do it even when they are at odds with his ideology. Because they don't really care about socialism. And in many cases, they don't even care about Islam. What they care about is, are you anti-American? Then that's the Mamdani coalition. Are you pro-American? That's the anti-Mamdani coalition. It has nothing to do with ideology. It has nothing to do with socialism or Marxism, economic policies. It has to do with whether or not you are pro or anti the country, pro or anti the city. There to build or there to loot. That's it. And the more people who come in and don't have ties to the country, don't have ties to our traditions, don't have ties to our religion or beliefs, the more people will vote for Mamdani. And you can explain to them that socialism has failed and communism has failed, and these social grocery stores, they've never worked anywhere they've been tried. The price controls, they never work anywhere they've been tried. They don't care. They don't care if the economics don't bear out. And the fact that conservatives are going blue in their face trying to explain this ideological issue to these people as if they're going to be like, well, now that you've properly laid out some Miesian economics for me, I simply can't support Mom. No, come on, man. Like, where were you born? Were you born last night? Like, what's going on? So like I said, I just want to walk through this and lay out the actual way that this works. And I've got a few different graphs that we can look at real quick so we can kind of grasp the totality of the situation, right? So remember, after 9/11, the big concern for a lot of people was this is going to be this is going to be like the huge backlash, and all these bigoted Republicans are going to hate Muslims, and even George Bush believed this. The Republican Party totally pushed this. They bought it hook, line, and sinker. Do not let the Democrats carry all the blame here. Republicans are deeply responsible for this, okay? They came in and said, no, we have to push the idea that it wasn't Islam, it's not Muslims, it's like this radical version, it's this radical understanding. That's the problem. Muslims can be Americans. Muslims can join our beautiful country, and it'll be just like any other person joining the country. There's no difference between a Muslim in Somalia and a Christian from Europe. It's the same thing. It's the same thing, and there's no difference. And we'll just bring them over, and it'll be fine. And if you disagree, you're hateful. This was coming from the Republicans. This was coming from the conservatives. This was coming from the right. They vilified normal America, right? This is the classic Norm Macdonald tweet you've probably seen knocking around like, oh, I worry that the real problem with the millions, the thousands and thousands of people who were killed in terror attack is that some innocent Muslim might get some level of criticism, right? Like, this is what we heard over and over and over again. This is where we got the term Islamophobia, right? And it permeated everything. And again, I do not want this. I want us to pretend this is just some function of the woke left, or this is the Democrats and them calling racist. This was George Bush. This was the Republican Party. This was the predominant opinion on the right, on the conservative sphere for a long time. And to be clear, there were some people who continued to push even against all of that, right? Even against all of that. But they were few. There were popular personalities, including Glenn Beck, by the way. He caught a lot of flack for this, for pointing out that the Islamic problem was a real problem. There were a lot of people who shouted him down for that, because he was one of the few voices that continued to push that inside and say, you know what, this is a problem and we need to solve it. And you can see the level of betrayal here, because look at the Muslims in the United States graph here, right? We start with like 500,000-ish in the 1990s. We get to the time of 2000s, right? This is, when the attack takes place. And what happens here, we see that we get about 1 million Muslims at that time. So you would expect, at the very least, even if ultimately we did not, embrace some kind of rejection of Islam, you would at least expect the immigration numbers to stay relatively the same, right? Like, we're not just going to open our doors up to like a bunch of Muslims after a massive terror attack, right? We're worried about the hate against Muslims. We're not going to bring more Muslims in. No, actually, we more than doubled the population in 10 years. More than doubled the population of Muslims in the United States in the 10 years after 9/11. More than doubled it on purpose. This is not a mistake. This is a plan. After we were attacked by radical Islamists, what happened? We doubled the population on purpose. And then by the time we get to 2020, we're seeing another doubling, more than doubling of the or almost a doubling of the population again. A dramatic climb in Muslims in the United States on purpose. The Republican administration's doing just as much to make this happen as the Democrats. And why? Because it was very important that no one was called a racist, that no one was called an Islamophobe. And so it didn't matter if this was destroying our social fabric. Didn't matter if Muslims did not belong in the United States. It didn't matter if it was opening us up to more terrorism or more cultural rot. None of that mattered, because the most important thing in the world for Republicans, for the right, is saying, don't be racist. That's all that mattered. It doesn't matter if you have a reason why you don't want Muslims here. It doesn't mean if it's perfectly logical. You, as an American, don't have a right to decide who comes into your country. So, yeah, not only are we going to say don't be mean to Muslims after like a bunch of your friends are murdered, but we're going to import double the number of Muslims and then double again. And if you say anything about it, you're a bad American. And conservatives were saying this. Republicans were saying this. In fact, if you say this today, you'll still get pushback. Because remember, Trump had the quote unquote Muslim ban, right? The travel ban. It mostly targeted Muslim countries. But it was unofficially not a Muslim ban. It was a travel ban. And that was called the Muslim ban by a lot of people and eventually got removed, got struck down, right? And a lot of Republicans attacked him for it. Lots of people on the right said, this is bigoted. This is not who we are. We can't have religious tests for who becomes an American. So even Trump's relatively mild attempt to solve this problem was decried by conservatives. Again, yes, Democrats are bad. I agree. But you have to hold the conservatives to account for this. You have to. The blame for this lies at the feet of Republicans and the conservative establishment. They did this to our country, and they did it on purpose. And now that it happened, they don't know how to deal with it. So they're talking about socialism. Now, some of them will say, yes, it's bad that Islam is here because, well, they don't like Jewish people and like we've got to defend Israel. We're finally getting some pushback purely on the Islamic front. And look, I don't care. Ultimately, it's really frustrating that Israel has to be like the mechanism by which they justify finally pushing back against this. But fine, whatever. As long as you are not moving a bunch of people who hate my country and my way of life into my country, I don't really care how you justify it. I'd prefer you justified it in a way that made sense to the rest of the population, that took the Americans into account, that put America first. But ultimately, I'll just take the fact that you're not importing these people en masse into my country. I really will. But it is notable that that's what it took for them to finally say, actually, Islam in the United States is a problem. Actually, maybe we can't just import infinite Muslims in and say, oh, but we waved the magic America wand over them, so they're Americans now. That it was true before they threatened Israel or whatever, guys. It didn't just start becoming true because of the Gaza war. But apparently that's the only thing that can get a lot of conservatives to care about Americans. So that's what we did. But here we are, and as long as we're pushing back against these people, fine, I'm okay with it. But the problem is that conservatives, even in this moment, still hesitate to say the obvious. If Islam in the United States is a problem, then we should just ban Muslim immigration. Just ban it. Don't give me excuses. Oh, we got to fight the socialism over here. We got to fight these people on college campuses. No, you just ban them. You tell them they can't come in. The end. If you chuck Muslim on the form, Islam is your religion, you can't come here. I'm sure that there are wonderful Muslims out there. I have met good people who are Muslims. There are even good people in the United States who are Muslims, but they just don't belong here. Sorry, it's not just about finding the good people. It's not just about getting the good ones. I'm sorry, this is a Christian country. Islam is incompatible with it, and you simply should not be here. And it's okay to say that. And conservatives who are telling me, oh, well, I'm really concerned about Islam, but they don't say anything about banning Muslim immigration. I don't think you really actually are concerned. If you were concerned, you would just say this. But you won't say it because you're scared. And you're more scared of being racist, even than getting rid of Muslims out of the country that you say are so dangerous. Sorry, either you think they're dangerous and they need to go, or they aren't dangerous, and you could just keep doing what you're doing. But your current rhetoric is incompatible, right? You can't tell me out of one side of your mouth, yes, Muslims are dangerous, but also we can't really ban Muslim immigration. No, that makes no sense. I can ban dangerous criminals from being on the street. They can put them in jail. Republicans are generally okay with this. They're dangerous. They shouldn't be on the street. We get that. But for some reason, we can't stop dangerous people from coming into the country, people who don't belong here from being in the country. When? Since when? Where is that in our immigration laws? Makes no sense. Makes no sense. So I want to look at this next graph here. This is public opinion of Muslims after 9/11. Now, again, we heard endlessly from everyone, including conservative leaders, that the most dangerous thing after Islamic attacks were actually Republicans or conservatives or Americans who might not feel the right way about Islam. We can see that we went from 45% approval overall up to 59% total. The largest gain was across Republicans, which I guess isn't surprising because they would have had the lowest approval. And they come up to having almost some of the highest. They're only behind liberal Democrats by 4%. Independents and moderate Republicans actually were less favorable. Conservative Democrats were actually less favorable. So only the most conservative Republicans and those liberal Democrats saw this level of improvement over time. And that really tells you a few things, okay? The first thing it tells you is that public opinion is entirely controlled by elites. And I mean entirely controlled by elites. I'm sorry, but the natural reaction to a terrorist attack in the United States by a Muslim group is that their approval goes down, not up. So if it goes up after an attack, something artificial is happening here, right? You got September 11th, and by November 1st, this is what the improvement looks like in approval of Muslim numbers. How in the world does that happen? It happens because people are programmed by the media and their leaders to believe what they believe. If we had organic opinions based on actual experience here, you would expect these numbers to plummet. And instead they soar. Why? Because our religion in the United States is never be racist. I wish our religion was Christianity. That'd be nice. But that's not what happened. Our religion is don't be racist. That's the actual religion of the United States. And so the most important thing, even after a terror attack, is to show that you are not a racist, which is why that's what George Bush and every other Republican ran out there and pushed, right? And ultimately, these numbers show how artificial public opinion is. It can be so easily manipulated in such a short amount of time. And this is why it matters who you let into your country. Because we are ultimately a democracy, at least in theory, right? A lot of people say, oh, a constitutional republic. No, not really. Sadly, not for a long time. We couldn't keep it. I'm very sorry. At the best, we're a democracy. The truth is we're an oligarchy. But we make our decisions, we legitimate our leaders through popular sovereignty, which means the more people you let in from outside the country who don't have a connection to the people, don't have a connection to the place, don't have a connection to the religion, the history, the heritage, the tradition, the folkways, the more people you let in that don't have that connection, the more they will vote for people who have deeply un-American policies. So yeah, Zohran Mamdani is a socialist. Yes, he's an Islamist. And guess what? Those things aren't American. And guess what? Neither are the people voting for him. This is not rocket science. Mamdani did not win a debate in the marketplace of ideas. He did not convince all the young people to be socialists. He did not even convert everyone into Islam. He simply ran for control of a city where the demographics had wildly shifted. And these people are going to vote for him because he's just not American. That is the real reason. He stands in opposition to America. And guess what? So does the city of New York, because they're mostly not from America anymore. It's not that hard to figure out, right? We can, again, just look at the New York Post headline here. Zohran Mamdani, most popular with foreign-born New Yorkers, but Cuomo's favorite with homegrown voters, says poll. Mamdani is famous or is popular with people who aren't American. That's it. That's the explanation. You don't have to be some kind of incredible philosopher. You don't have to delve deeply into, all the different understandings of economics in the last century. He's a person of a specific race, a specific nationality, a specific religion. And because he contains those traits, those people will vote for him. Because he's not American, because he's not Christian, because he's not a laissez-faire capitalist. That's it. That's all they need to know. They don't care. They just don't want an American. They don't want the American way of life. They want to take what America has. They do not want to become American. It's not about assimilation. It's about conquest. It's about control. And because of the way this is developed, we're seeing this across the United States. It's not just New York. Everyone knows at this point that Somalia basically runs Minnesota, right? Like you have this massive explosion of Somalians in that state. You have representatives like Ilhan Omar and many others who are taking over Minneapolis, Minnesota. They openly say, I am here to fight for Somalia. I'm here to fight for Somalians. And you Somalians in America, you aren't Americans, you're Somalians. And you're who I'm fighting for. Our homeland is Somalia, not the United States. And that's what we're fighting for. They are not coy about this. It's not a complicated scenario. They announce it proudly and loudly. And now you have the city councils of places like Minneapolis, Minnesota, denouncing Christians who complain about the Muslim call to prayer. Say, hey, this is dominating our public spaces. We can't have church bells anymore. We can't even have like Christian public gatherings anymore because we constantly have to hear 5 times a day, like the blaring of these Muslim calls to prayer. And the leaders, the political leaders of these places are saying, get out of here. You don't belong here, white Christian person. This city isn't for you. This country isn't for you. It's for people like me now. Me and mine own this and you don't. And they're not saying that because they became socialists. It's not about the socialism, kids. They're saying this because they're Muslim. They're saying this because they come from foreign countries. And that is who they are loyal to, and that is what they love. And no, it doesn't matter how uncomfortable that makes you. It doesn't matter how, oh, we don't talk like that in the United States. They do. What are you going to do about it? Because it's working. They're winning, you're losing. What are you going to do? And again, this is why I'm tired of this discussion. Oh no, the socialism is coming. Oh no, the Muslims are coming. Cool. Are you going to ban immigration from those countries? Are you co-signing a ban on all Islamic immigration tomorrow? Are you willing to ban immigration from all majority Muslim countries tomorrow? If not, don't talk to me about this. I don't believe you. You're too weak. You're too weak to do anything about it. Same people like Ted Cruz running around saying, oh, China's our greatest enemy. Don't get me wrong. I don't like China. Yeah, they're bad. Like they're going to do things to my country I don't want them to do. They're trying to steal our property, our intellectual property. They're trying to spy on us. They're trying to expand their sphere of influence. Okay. Are you going to ban any of them? Are you going to ban immigration of their students into our colleges? Ban the ability for them to be accepted? By the way, Ron DeSantis in Florida, my governor, great guy. Better governor than a presidential candidate, but great governor, amazing governor. Just ban the idea that HB1s can be used to come to Florida schools. Every GOP governor could do this, but only Ron DeSantis is doing it because he's a great governor and he's a leader. Again, preferring the executive of a state as opposed to the country, but very good at what he does, leading on this issue. Every Republican could do this. Ted Cruz could be pushing for this nationally. He's not. Republican leaders are not pushing against Chinese immigration. They're not pushing about them coming into our schools. They're not pushing about them, pushing them away from buying our farmland, buying our residential housing. Don't tell me this is an existential threat. Don't tell me China is some geopolitical existential threat. And then allow these people into our country. I don't believe you. You're lying. You're doing pro wrestling for the camera. You are not a serious political actor. And the same is true when it comes to Islam. Don't tell me you're scared of Islam and then not call for the banning of Islamic immigration. Don't do it. I don't believe you. You're a liar. Okay? And this has a terrible effect all around. So I'm sure you guys have heard that it could be the fact that we're seeing the end of EBT, food stamps, SNAP benefits at the end of this month if the government continues to be shut down. By the way, did you, as someone who's not entirely dependent on the American government, did you even notice that the government's shut down? But you know who does notice when the government's shut down? Let's check this out. Food stamps by ethnicity. Who receives food stamps in the United States? Who are the people getting these government benefits? Who are the people who are dependent on the government? Who are our top categories of people reliant on the government for this money? Oh, look, number one, it's Afghanis, Afghan Muslims. Remember when we were supposed to go over to the Middle East and fight them over there so we didn't have to fight them over here? I have lots of friends who were in the global war on terror, lots of friends who were deployed to Afghanistan and Iraq, lots of friends who lost people there, who suffered PTSD, who suffered serious injuries, whose lives were irrevocably changed by those wars. And now, the majority of the highest percentage of people receiving U.S. food stamps in this country are people from the country we went to fight. The highest number of people receiving food stamps, or the highest percentage of people receiving food stamps in this country right now, are the people that we fought in another country. We were told were a threat. We had to go send our best and brightest to fight. That's who now receives the highest percentage of benefits. Right below them, Somalia. Little Somalia, moving in, taking over, controlling Minnesota. They get the second highest percent. Behind them, Iraqis in the United States. So 2 of the 3 highest percentage of people getting SNAP benefits in the United States are people from countries we went to fight terrorism in. That's where your money is going. The money being stolen from you is going to people who literally you went to go fight and kill. Your brothers, your fathers, your sons went to go fight, in theory, for our freedom. Those are the people who are getting SNAP benefits. Muslims from countries we were told we had to go fight a foreign war against. They're the ones getting all the benefits in the United States. Again, continue to look. You've got Dominicans, Caribbeans, Native American Indians, I'm assuming there, Puerto Ricans, Cubans, Black Americans, Arabs, Haitians, Cambodians, Pacific Islanders, all the way down Palestinians, Ethiopians, Mexicans, Bangladeshis, Armenians. Who's at the bottom? China, white Americans, Italians, and Indians, as in the subcontinent Indians. So one of the bottom 3 groups getting assistance from SNAP in the United States are actually white Americans. The top groups dominating the benefits are Muslim countries, many of which we had to invade to stop, the terrorism that they were going to bring here. This is the reality of the United States. It is a wealth transfer program to our enemies, which the Republicans presided over, who created. This was their handiwork. Again, yes, Democrats are bad. Yes, they've done bad things. But I want to focus on who's really ultimately to blame here. And ultimately, I think it's the Republican Party. I think it's the GOP. They pushed these immigration policies. They stood by these immigration policies. They pushed these foreign wars. They involved us in all of this. They betray us at every level. And so if the SNAP benefits end and we get these riots in the streets from, bread riots that people are currently predicting, I'm going to talk more about this on Friday. I'm bringing on one of our favorite historian podcasters to discuss some parallels here with ancient Rome, as we so often do. But if there are bread riots, the majority of the people who will be leading them will not be Americans in any way, shape, or form. Because that's what America is now designed to do. It's designed to fleece middle America and give all that money to foreigners. That's it. That's what it's designed to do, front and back. That is what our entire government is designed to do. And our government, left and right, conservative and liberal, Democrat and Republican, refuse to ban immigration from these hostile countries that are fleecing us of our money. It's not just that they're Muslim. It's not just that they embrace socialism. It's not just that they come from countries where there's a high degree of terrorism. Literally, we went to fight global wars on terror in those countries. It's not just those things. It's that once they're here, the entire purpose is to funnel money to them from the people who theoretically they were victimizing. The people they'll oppose. And by the way, again, this isn't just happening in New York or even in a place like Minnesota. It's happening in Republican states. Check out Texas. They're talking about building Islamic cities built just for Muslim populations. In Texas. Don't mess with Texas. Come on. Come on. And again, Ted Cruz, senator from Texas, haven't heard a word about Muslim ban. So what's going on? What's going on, Republican Party? Oh, you don't care about this. In fact, not only do you not care about this, you're on board with this. So I don't want to hear about Zohran Mamdani. I don't want to hear one more word about Zohran Mamdani from anyone who's not calling for a ban on Muslim immigration. I don't want to hear it. Because the problem isn't socialism. And the problem isn't even really Islam, though I don't think it belongs in the United States at all. The real problem is immigration. You're bringing people in from outside the country who don't care about the country, who are only here to take benefits from the country. And then they're electing people you don't like. So I guess we're going to have to face reality. It's not about abstract ideology, and not everyone can become an American. That's it. There is no reason we should increase the number of Muslims in this country by one. By one. There's no reason. And any conservative, any Republican, any right-winger who's not willing to stand up against this is a coward and a traitor and a liar. They don't mean what they're saying. They don't care about the Islamification of New York. They don't care about the socialism sweeping young people. They don't care. If they cared, they would face the reality that what's really happening is ethnic replacement of people who would have voted against Mamdani and his religion and his ideology and his economics. You replaced those people with different people. He didn't win an argument. He didn't win the argument in the marketplace of ideas. You replaced the population. You brought in non-Americans, and they voted for non-Americans who support non-American policies. You invited the third world, and now you've become the third world. That's what happened. And if you're too much of a coward to call for a ban on Muslim immigration, you have no place on the right. Just move along. I'm not going to sit here and pretend like you have any solutions. You've rejected all of the real solutions. All right, guys, let's go to the questions of the people here real quick. Let's see here. Philosophical Thirstworm says, you'll never catch someone doing ministry with these people. Only ever off in Africa or South America. Where's Big Eva in New York? Yeah, that's a good point. I'm not getting a lot of missionary missions to go to Islamic parts of New York, are you? Interesting that. Let's see here. I'm not sure how to say that. Something Ninja. He says Connor Tomlinson has some good videos on how third worlders and Muslims think and justify their action. He has a good one on how Africans view time. Yeah, I've actually got a similar video. We're probably working off the same young woman who talked about how Africans view time. If you want to check my version of that out, it's on this channel. But either way, yeah, I mean, there's a real case for the fact that different peoples experience the world differently, and so radically differently that it's very hard for these people to coexist and overlap in certain scenarios, right? And this is why it's so difficult for conservatives or people, even liberals in the United States, to grasp this fact that ultimately a lot of times people can't adopt these views. It doesn't make them bad people. They can live great lives in the places where their people and their culture dominate. This is not about necessarily even saying, oh, one culture is superior to the other. It's just to say, God created the nations and created them for a reason. He separated peoples for a reason. It doesn't mean that there aren't some levels at which we can coexist and be happy and love each other. In fact, we're called to do that to some degree as Christians. But that doesn't mean we can just ignore these differences, especially when there's an opposing religion that clearly discards our values and is literally called for jihad against us. Like, at some point, you have to recognize that these are fundamentally different ways to see the world. When the founder said these truths are self-evident, they mean to us. Thomas Jefferson fought the Barbary pirates. He also wrote about how truths are self-evident. But he didn't invite a bunch of the Barbary pirates back to the United States to live as Americans. He didn't think those truths were self-evident to those people. He didn't go fight them over in Tripoli and then say, "Hey guys, come on over to the U.S. You'll make great Americans after we teach you about Rothbardian economics." Like, that just isn't what happened. Cherry Coke Nixon says, "I've noticed many anti-Zionists downplay Islam even with 1,400 years of conflict. Why are so many cucked on this issue, even right-wing ones?" Yeah, this is a huge problem, right? Like, I really, really, really want to make this clear. A lot of people who don't like what Israel's doing right now, and I have my own questions about our relationship with Israel, which I've been very clear about. But a lot of these people then say, well, then Islam must be our friend, right? Because if they oppose Israel, then they must be. No, they are not your ally. They hate you. They hate you. And don't be so stupid to say, oh, well, because I have some problems with Israel or even America's relationship with Israel, even if those happen to be valid concerns, that therefore I'm on the side of Muslims. Like, no, obviously not. Again, as he points out here, there is a long, long history of Muslims trying to kill Christians, selling them into slavery, slaughtering them wholesale. You do not want to ally yourselves with these people simply because you have a current problem with the nation state of Israel. That is the height of stupidity. In this case, the enemy of your enemy is not your friend. Don't be so foolish. Herb Seasoning says, "You said you weren't a Rush guy. How about industrial?" Okay, he's talking about metal here, or rock. I don't know Laybash. I do know Rammstein. I've of course heard some of their songs. Yeah, unfortunately, I don't know enough. There are some industrial-ish bands. Was it Fear Factory? Right, is like a industrial metal band that's pretty good. Yeah, like they're it's again, it's not my cup of tea. Industrial is a very particularly like '90s version. Obviously, everyone thinks of like Nine Inch Nails and that kind of stuff. And then it bled into 2000s. And there is again some stuff that can be good, but it's definitely not my go-to. Let's see here. Jay Warville says, but what if we talk about freedom to them a little bit more? Yeah, that really is just the mentality, right? If we just mention the founders, talk about our principles, eventually they'll understand the benefits of freedom and open inquiry. And like, no, actually, most people won't. Those things aren't universal. They aren't things that everyone wants or cares about or cherishes. They're actually descended from a particular people with a particular tradition, a particular religion, a particular belief. That's why you value it, because you too, in one way or another, are inheritors of that tradition. That's why you care about it. You can't just teach it to everybody. I'm sorry. Menayud says, language, faith, culture, history, and yes, birth, blood, and soil produce a people, not an ideology. Pat Buchanan. Yep, Pat's been pretty clear on that for a very long time. By the way, you can see most of those sentiments echoed in John Jay's Federalist Number 2. They're not some new crazy right-wing thing that Pat Buchanan brought up. It's how the founders also defined our country. Florida Henry says, I just flew across the country and airports were almost all foreign workers. Yeah, if you have not been, especially to like hub airports like Atlanta or DC or New York, you just have not taken enough black pills. I mean, I've been, I was in the JFK airport a few months ago, and literally I saw like 7 people from different nations, all of which barely spoke English, all desperately attempting to coordinate in a language they couldn't understand, and trying to understand tasks that they didn't really get either. It was just, it was amazing. It's the Tower of Babel, just disasters happening all the time. So yeah, airports are a great way to understand really why you don't want to live like this all the time. Marcos 588 says, could agree more, Auron. Speaking of parallels with ancient Rome, I know he was laying low for ages, but it would be good to see Furious here again. Yeah, Furious Pertinax, of course, great guy. He has been laying low. I don't know if he's still doing shows at this time, but would be more than happy to have a chat with him if he is back and decides he wants to do that. He also says if you need a reminder as to why Europeans ought to be vigilant against other Abrahamic religions, see the fate of the Byzantines, Eastern Empire. Well, yeah, obviously, the Byzantines were famously battling against Islam for their entire history. Constant bombardment, fighting against those forces. Classic explanation as to really why you should understand this long clash between Muslims and Christians. Islam is just not the ally of Christianity. It never will be. And so, however you feel about Israel currently or something, it is very dumb to be like, in that case, I'm on the side of the Muslims. Like that. That is just the dumbest thing you could possibly do. All right, guys, we're going to go ahead and wrap this up. Want to thank everybody for coming by. Always great to speak with all of you. If it's your first time on this channel, of course, you need to subscribe to the YouTube channel, click the bell notification so you know when we go live. If you want to get these broadcasts as podcasts, you need to subscribe to the Auron MacIntyre show on your favorite podcast platform. If you do, leave a rating or review. It really helps with the algorithm magic. Thank you, everybody, for watching. And as always, I will talk to you next time.